Hello, welcome back to another Tabletop Talk. So today we have hit 1,000 subscribers. So I appreciate everybody's support. I really didn't think when I started this a couple of years ago that I would have been received as well as this, but I'm very, very thankful. And so just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has liked, subscribed, commented especially. I enjoy the comments and all the kind words, even the suggestions, sharing your stories and your replays. All of those things have been a lot of fun. So my channel is a little unusual in that I'm basically just sharing what I'm doing at the time, and sometimes that can be more exciting than others. When I'm trying a lot of different games and things like that, that could be a bit more exciting than settling in on a replay or something like that. But in spite of the nature of what I'm doing here, everybody has been very receptive, and I'm just wanted to say thanks for that. And hopefully, what I put out will be of interest to those in the community. So, been really getting into the 1920 Negro League baseball. Negro League baseball is fascinating to me, has always been. I know, at least speaking from views and things like that, it's not as interesting to some people, and that's fine. But that's kind of what I've been delving in. So my two other teams for 1920 came, and I've been playing quite a bit of a league, so I thought I'd share a little bit about it. I'm not sure how interesting this will be, but if you're a Negro League fan, you might enjoy this. But at any rate, this is kind of what I've been focusing on a little bit the last week or so. So Negro League, you have a lot of greatest teams. There's a few all-star sets. You can find them in Hall of Fame sets, things like that. So I'm obviously the replay gamer. I like seasons and things like that. So for cards and dice, the only option that was available was 1923 with replay, which I have. But Chris White, he offers seasons of cards, and so I ordered the 1920. So 1920 is special in that that was the first year of the Negro National League. Up before 1920, it was mainly independent teams, barnstorming, playing each other occasionally. There are some stats, but 1920, Rube Foster, who was a very good pitcher in and of his own right earlier than the 1920, started the Negro National League. So they were 8 teams to begin with. So you got these guys here. And so it was kind of the western front, but you also had some teams in the eastern part of the country, like the Atlantic City Backrack Giants and the Brooklyn Royal Giants. I will say it interests me a great deal about what the fascination with the Giants moniker is, or was. As you can see, out of these 10 teams, 5 of them are called Giants of some fashion. So I've kind of looked and Googled, and I can't really find exactly why that is. But it would interest me greatly to find out why the Giants team name was so popular among Negro League teams. But as you can see, 5 of the 10 were called Giants. They did differentiate, like Backrack Giants, Royal Giants, American Giants. But at any rate, so you had these Eastern teams. So let me show you. So the seam heads is the awesomest place ever for Negro League. Now, Baseball Reference is doing some. They put some stats up, but it's just the leagues. Like here you can see the Eastern Independent clubs, like the Brooklyn Royal Giants, Atlantic City Backrack Giants, Baltimore Black Sox, etc. Their stats are not on Baseball Reference, just the Negro National League. And so a lot of Negro League baseball action happened outside of actual leagues. So in doing 1920, I could have just done, I have one of my friends has agreed to talk about Negro League, and so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there. I just want to focus mainly on 1920 and what I'm doing here, not the great big picture. So here you've got the eight teams. They didn't play the same amount of games, and so again, Negro League, because of the circumstances, it was a special type of league. But I wanted that there's a lot of great players in those Eastern Independent clubs, and I wanted to get some of those. So, like for example, Pop Lloyd played for the Brooklyn Royal Giants. Dick Redding, Cannonball Dick Redding, played for the Atlantic City Backrack Giants. So again, just a lot of good players that were in these Eastern Independent clubs that didn't play in the Negro National League, because again that was out east. And so you got Smoky Joe Williams, played for the New York Lincoln Giants. And so you can see there that the Atlantic City Backrack Giants, they played, 38 games, 40 games. The Brooklyn Royal Giants played 22. The Hilldale Club played 20. Now, I didn't do them, and unfortunately, there were some good players there that I'm missing out on. Louis Santop, big name. Otto Briggs. Phil Cockrell was a good pitcher. Connie Rector. So again, missing some guys there. Now, interestingly enough, one thing I'm really finding helpful, especially here in 1920, is Stratomatic's Negro League computer seasons. And so what they did with 1920 is that they made a 10-team league, and they used the teams here that I have on the board. They used these 10 teams, and what they did is that the players that played like in Hilldale, the New York Lincoln Giants, there was a Cuban Stars East. The Baltimore Black Sox only played 2 games at least. That's recorded on Seamheads. But they took the major players from those teams and put them on the Atlantic City Backrack Giants and the Brooklyn Royal Giants mainly. And then the Cuban Stars East, they put those on the Cuban Stars West. And so I didn't do that. Chris White I think he does do some special order stuff, but what he had available was just the teams. So I guess I could have got the Hilldale Club. They played 20 games. Again, when you're getting to that small sample size, the problem you run into is anomalies and, obviously overperforming or underperforming just because there wasn't enough games. One thing I really like about Stratomatics, they're 1920, and again, they have a ton of seasons. It's just not 1920. They actually prorate them. Now, you have to take some liberties with that, but I really like that. So I'm actually using the 1920 Stratomatic, again, those 10 teams, and I'm using those prorated stats to kind of help me. Now, obviously, I can't do much about the hitters cards, but like the pitchers ratings. So you get, somebody like for Atlantic City Backrack Giants who only pitched 3 games but had a 1 ERA. There'll be a A and a B. And so Strat will, prorate that. And so I'll kind of take the mixture of those two and maybe adjust it to where this particular pitcher isn't an A and a B, and I know I imagine Strat does this because I do it, is that I'll look at the season before, the season after, to kind of give a little bit of idea what kind of player they might be. So again, when you get small sample sizes like that, you obviously, there's some adjustment you might need to do. But so that's kind of what I got going. Is like I'm about six games into it for every team, and we'll go back to go back here. So you can see the Chicago American Giants were the best team by a good amount. So far, they're off to a slow start. They're 3-4. I will say overall, I'm very impressed with how it's working out. There is a big enough sample size that I believe that it's working out okay. Again, when you're playing something like this, at least for me, if I get too nitpicky, I'm just not going to enjoy it. And the options that are available to me to do something like this aren't great. And so I kind of have to, work with what I have. So I'm finding that using, the real life stats that Chris put on these cards with some adjustments with strats. And then obviously I also can use strats PC to input my stats and play the game kind of like I do with most of my Atlas stuff. I use Strat, so I can do that with the Negro League as well. So it'll keep stats, and just like I can with 1969, for example. And one great thing about this is that with the available Diamond Gem teams and all-star, Negro League teams, you get kind of the big picture. But something like this, it really narrows it down, and you kind of get some detail, which is why I like replays, season replays, is because of that. You get some of the lesser known players. You kind of get to know teams, not the great teams, but the not so great teams like the Dayton Marcos. They're fascinating. They wasn't around very long. Candy Jim Taylor, who is C.I. Taylor's, who is Indianapolis ABC's head guy. Ben Taylor, his brother, also plays with them, and Steel Arm Taylor played with them a little bit. But Candy Jim Taylor, he's in charge of the Dayton Marcos, and it was kind of fun because they were in Indianapolis for a 3-game series and took 2 of 3 from Indianapolis. So that was, you kind of had the family dynamic going on there. Candy Jim Taylor was a very good third baseman. He didn't have a great offensive year, but he did have a good series against Indianapolis, against his brothers. And so, again, I mean, you don't get that kind of detail with, all-star seasons, all-star sets, and things like that. So, and again, those sets are great, but I obviously prefer things like this, where I can actually see the teams and, kind of how they're shaking out. It's really, again, I've said this before, and it's really hit home. Kurt Berglund has said that the 2 things that he likes out of a sim is that it's enjoyable and fun. And the second thing is that he's learning something. And so I can definitely say on both counts that is what I'm getting here, and I agree with that sentiment. I feel like that those are the 2 major things I look for in a Sim 2. It's got to be enjoyable, not bulky, not too cluttered, not too complicated, also not too simple, not too generic. So the enjoyableness of it, the playability, and then also to learn something. And so obviously, there's a whole wealth of information about Negro Leagues that, I'm diving in. So I'm reading books on the side. I know, for example, I think there's a book called Voices of the Negro League, I think is what it's called, but it's firsthand accounts. And the first one I read was the St. Louis Giants, who become the Stars later, and that's where Cool Papa Bell originated, because he was from St. Louis, I believe. But Bill Drake, is their main starter for the 1920 St. Louis Giants, and he ends up going to Kansas City Monarchs later. But it was his nickname was Plunk because he was a bit of a headhunter. Not really a headhunter, but he was known to hit a few guys if he felt like he needed to. Matter of fact, it was interesting. He said he wouldn't go down to Cuba to play winter ball because he had plunked a few guys up here in America, and that he was a bit afraid to go down there because he felt like they might be lying in wait for him because down there he wouldn't be as safe. So he said that he wasn't terribly interested in going down to Cuba because of that. He did play some winter ball in California, but also another interesting thing that he said he really liked to throw a curveball on 3 and 2 because most guys wouldn't, and so that was kind of his secret weapon, so to speak, is that he would throw a curveball on a full count, which, those of you who know baseball know that that's not real common, because it's a little harder to get a curveball over the plate. But at any rate, so that was real interesting that his nickname was, I think it was Plunk. Let me look here and just make sure. Let's see, Bill Drake. Yeah, he was from Missouri, odd enough. Yeah, Plunk was his nickname. So, but it was, interesting to hear him talk about barnstorming and things like that. So, reading that, I've read Oscar Charleston. I will say the Indianapolis, they're 3 and 3 so far, lost 2 or 3 to Dayton Marcos, and their main hitters, Oscar Charleston and Ben Taylor, who is the younger brother of C.I. Taylor, who is the manager of the team. They're off to a really slow start. Jimmy Lyons is killing it. Let's see, I'm still getting Negro League. The teams they shuttled around a ton. So I'm trying to, let's see. I'm pretty sure he plays with the Stars. Yeah, there he is. So, yeah, he's killing, and he's got, I think, 5 home runs already. So he is off to a great start. So just a lot of, I was amazed. The biggest guys, like Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige, those are probably the 2 biggest known Negro Leaguers. They don't come along. I think Paige in 27 and I think Josh Gibson in 30. But I was amazed at how many big-name players were in 1920. Pete Hill, Frank Warfield, Lyons, Pop Lloyd. He was older, but he was still playing. Cannonball Dick Redding. Again, just a lot of guys. Hurley McNair. Again, just a lot of guys. I don't think Turkey Stearns had come along yet, and Buck Leonard, he was later. So again, like any time period in any baseball league, you're going to hit some big ones and some not so big. Ben Hill, or not Ben Hill, but Ben Taylor, he was a Hall of Famer, I believe. And so anyway, that's kind of what I've been playing around with lately. Having a lot of fun with it. And again, Seamheads is a great resource. So I kind of wish that maybe I had Chris Print, those other teams, even though the sample sizes were kind of small, because there's a few guys. I mean, some of the names that are on some of those other teams. Otto Briggs was a big one. I mentioned a few. Santos, or Louis Santop, I mean. He was a big name. Smokey Joe Williams was a big one. Doc Sykes. Let's see. So anyway, there was a few. When you play a 1920, you want to get everybody. And so, again, there was a few that played on, like, the New York Lincoln Giants and the Hilldale Club again, a lot of barnstorming, spot polls. Zach Pettis was another one. I forget his nickname. but he was one that I was familiar with. So anyway, just wanted to share that. Again, I don't know how interesting that is to anybody other than me, but I imagine as time goes along that the Negro League options will become greater, and I had wished that Strat would card their seasons. Again, they don't look like they're going to do that. And again, they have a plethora of seasons. They've got a really good collection. And so, again, with them prorating and them cutting like this league, 1920, down to 10 teams, that obviously is not exactly how it transpired in 1920. But it gives you a really good idea of the players and the teams, So, you have to make some choices in this. It's just not like 1920 baseball, Major League Baseball, where they play a set amount of games, and you've got a big sample size of players, and again, a lot better representation of the talent that was going on in their league. Whereas in this league, there's some challenges to it just because of the way things were set up. But I'm so glad that Rube Foster decided to make a league, because that really stabilized it a lot. And then I think the Eastern Colored League that popped in, I think, in 1923, and then you had, again, the Negro National League folded, and then you had the second Negro National League, and then there was a American League that popped up. So again, because of the leagues, you had much more stability than you did when everything was independent, and so you get a much better representation of the talent and the abilities of these guys, because of that. So that's why I started with 1920. And again, Strat, they have gone back, to 1908 maybe, or maybe a little earlier, and some great players in those. But again, it was all independent and barnstorming. So, 1920 was the first year they actually tried to form a league, and it was successful. I think up until the 1930 maybe. I know Rube Foster had a mental breakdown late in the 20s, and the league pretty much died with him. But anyway, fascinating stuff. I enjoy this stuff very, very much, and it's been a hoot getting these guys on the table and seeing them play and their abilities. And again, I just thought I would share kind of how I'm doing this and the challenges. So anybody that's doing anything like this, feel free to chime in. I'd be interested in hearing what you're doing, especially if you're trying to do some kind of replay of a particular year. Again, 1923 replay baseball has it, and I've played that some, and it's very good. But this is a way for me to do 1920, and Chris has every season, and so I don't know if he does special order stuff. I don't know if he's interested and willing to, and I can afford it. I might maybe 1921, maybe see if I can get him to incorporate some things, because obviously I can't do cards like this. I got Kansas City and Indianapolis on deck, and you can just see the quality is amazing, and the card stock is just really thick, and so just very, very good stuff, and I can't do that. And so maybe if he's interested in working with me, we can maybe do 1921 a little bit with these things that I'm talking about. So, but again, any suggestions or anything you're doing or questions, feel free to chime in. Once again, thanks for the subscriptions, and hopefully we'll keep rolling on. So I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you next time.